Welcome to Sense of Youth, the podcast where we explore not just how money works, but how people work with money. I'm your host, Ihan, and each episode I sit down with individuals who have lived the lessons we're all trying to learn, from business leaders and financial experts to entrepreneurs and change makers from all walks of life. Today, we're joined by Nichol Ng, an entrepreneur, change maker, and co-founder of the Food Bank Singapore. She also leads X Inc. Group, a family-run company that distributes and manages food across Singapore. Beyond profit, Nichol has also built a career around purpose, channeling her business insight into fighting food waste and hunger. In this episode, we'll explore how her journey redefines what success really means, and how young people can find purpose in the way they earn, spend, and give. Nichol, it's such a privilege to have you here. Before we dive into the big themes of purpose and profit, I would love to start from the beginning of your journey. You grew up in a family business and started helping out from a young age. What are some lessons about money and responsibility that stuck with you?
Wow, that's a big question. So our family business was actually founded in 1934 by my paternal grandfather with a small food distribution shop house at Rochor Road. We've been through plenty of ups and downs, including World War II, Singapore's independence, and actually during my dad's generation, he built the business to quite a large empire of $250 million in the early 90s, spanning 40 companies in 25 countries. And that time I was in primary, secondary school when he was really building up the business. But with the Asian currency crisis, actually, we went bankrupt in 97, 98. We basically lost everything. Actually, 39 of the 40 companies were lost during that couple of years. And I literally saw my dad fall from grace, right? From having it all to carrying all the debt and burden, right? And going bankrupt as well. So some of the lessons actually were deeply rooted in that sense of responsibility to the family, and responsibility to the employees and the people around him as well. Because although he was bankrupted, he actually took it upon himself to ensure that all debts had to be paid off. And I was helping him pay off those debts all the way 2 years after he passed away in 2018. So that biggest lesson really was okay, money can come and go. It's not something permanent. Family values is something that I learned along the way, and it might be something the most priceless instead of putting a dollar value to the value of the business, which I think most business people actually, okay, they, my business is worth, 100 million, 200 million, 300 million or whatever. But is that really it? So from a very young age, I saw that it's not just the value of the company, but actually what the company does for the extended family. It fed a lot of my cousins, my uncles, gave us a livelihood. And that was that sense of purpose about why we wanted to continue that family business, right? Because it kept the family alive back in the day. But in today's world, of course, things are very different. And I saw it upon my dad, who passed in 2016, that he took it upon himself to ensure that yes, we went through hard times, went through bankruptcy. And that was also the reason why I came back in 2002 to join my father. Not because there was plenty of money. Like most people would think that, wow, family businesses, tons of money, but that wasn't the case for me. I came into a broken company full of debt. The only reason why I came back was I wanted to be my dad's cheerleader and sidekick, because he had nobody beside him to modernize and really to turn the business around. So I guess this was the biggest lesson that I learned when I joined the business 23 years ago.
That's a really inspiring story. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's definitely a fresh perspective that looking at a business not just from a monetary value, but in the value and what it's grounded, and the beliefs that ground the business in, such as family values and this background. So how did that early lessons in your childhood and your story really shape how you saw money growing up? And did that change in any way the decisions that you make today?
I think because when I was like really young in the early 80s, I also saw the way my father and my uncle work. So at the shop, right, it was literally open 7 days a week. It's really like a 杂货店 provision shop kind of thing. They took turns to man the shop, really, and I remember my dad telling me his salary was like 100, $200 kind of thing. It was like literally nothing. And from those days in like early 80s, when I was like a couple of years old, picking him up on a Sunday, to in the early 90s where, his head office was in Orchard Road. We were doing film and movie production with like top Hong Kong actors, to having a seafood trawling business in Cape Town, opening the first duty-free shop in the Maldives in 1989. It was like it's a whirlwind. So it's like money grew from like literally from thin air because there were opportunities. But we also lost it all within like, the next 10 years. And so what it really struck me was money really comes and goes. And what is the value of money if at the end of the day, right, it's actually what money can buy you. It can buy you experiences. Sometimes it buys you friendship, but it's not what you want. But money also allows people to want to come alongside you, right? And I saw that literally, especially during my dad's time, when he had so much wealth at one point, that, he was just surrounded by people telling him a lot of like lofty stories. And so you really have to be very grounded in your values, right? And you just have to ensure that the people who are good to you, whether it's your loved ones, your families, or your dearest friends, that you are surrounded by good people with a good head on their shoulders. Because good times may not last. And in the same way, tough times don't last forever as well. So as long as you're surrounded with the best people, you can always make good out of a bad situation. So I guess I always carried that with me because I saw my dad go through that. And sadly, when my dad passed away, he didn't have, much cash because he was like paying off everybody else. And till the day that he passed, literally, he was like a workaholic. And there wasn't any work-life balance in his life. I mean, he loved his family. We were very close as a family unit. But if I were to go back to have that conversation with my father, he passed very young. He was only 67. And, if I was going to ask, like, Dad, what was his biggest regret? I think it would be like not having that balanced life so that he could maybe take care of himself a little bit more, putting himself first. And spending a bit more time and money to be with his family, because he was sometimes hardly around. He was flying around, making the next dollar, chasing that next rainbow. And he was therefore not there to grow up with the grandchildren, which I think he probably a little bit of a taste of it because my older children were already born. But they were too young for him to enjoy, being a granddad, probably like traveling together a lot and things like that, which I got when I was, at least with my maternal side. I was always hanging out with my grandma, up to the point that she passed and things like that. So I think my dad never got that. So what I'm saying is, if you're looking at money really sometimes can buy you time as well, right? I mean, in terms of health, it gives you the best medical care if you can. It buys you opportunities, but it doesn't buy you time in the sense that value time, with your loved ones, because once you're gone, you're gone. And if you put that into perspective, even for myself now, I'm trying to learn because I'm such a workaholic. Am I spending time with my loved ones in the best way possible? And I try to share that with the people that work for me, work with me, whether in the non-profit sector or whether in my company, my business as well. Especially for the young people who join me straight from school, for example. I always ask them one thing, it's like, what is your ultimate dream? And I asked that at interview. I said, when you're 65, like, how do you envision yourself to be? And it's very scary to me that a lot of people don't know where they're heading towards, and even if they tell me they want to be a millionaire, right, that's a dream. And how do you work towards that? And as a company, as someone who hires you, how do we enable that dream to happen? So this was something that I took away, or something that I actually give back to the people around me. Yeah.
That's a really important reminder that I think money can't be just taken at face value, just a numerical value. I think we have to look at the value that money can provide and what it can give. On a related note as well, I think that we also have to look at balance in doing anything that we do in life. So you lead both X Inc. Group and the Food Bank Singapore. How would you balance profit-driven decisions with purpose-driven impact in your daily work?
So when we decided to start the food bank in 2012, we made it very clear that running a charity is not our forte because we didn't come from the social space. But as business people, we were observing the entire ecosystem that we were in. We were waiting for some of the big boys, whether it's government agencies, to start a food bank because we saw on the ground cost of living already escalating, even all the way in 2010, 2012. It was really at a scary rate because we were importers of food. So we saw it firsthand. Cost of food, cost of living already going up. And cost of salaries back then were not really doubling, but cost of food was already doubling. So we saw that problem. And secondly, when sustainability was like, back in the day, it was just a cool word to use. It was just a buzzword. We saw ourselves not as a green champion, but really that we are dumping away so much food. Singapore literally till today still throws away 30% of everything that we import. So we were thinking to ourselves, just by simply being a business person, not the wealthiest, we were not extremely wealthy, but we were well connected. We were connected to supermarkets, to restaurants, to importers, to stakeholders. We were connected to the very big boys that controlled very large international brands. Is there something that this small SME can do? Because we saw a problem. Firstly, food was being wasted. Secondly, cost of living and cost of food was going up. And thirdly, we felt that nobody was doing anything. And so we just bit the bullet and say, okay, let's start a complete non-profit organization because we cannot be mixed up with our for-profit business. So back in, I think 13 years ago now, social enterprises didn't have a very clear identity. There were also a lot of rotten eggs in the ecosystem who used the blanket term social enterprise to actually make money, to do good, right? And actually social enterprises are not a bad term, but in the very early days, people were just abusing the identity of a social enterprise. So we didn't want to be caught in between of having a for-profit business. And so we wanted to start the food bank as 100% non-profit, where people in the ecosystem therefore will know that, okay, the food bank is the food bank. It is 100% non-profit. It doesn't commingle profit for purpose, for example. It's very clear. And therefore, we are also governed by the Register of Charities and by a very different set of rules. Because in our early days of setting up the food bank, there was a lot of doubt. Some of our peers were even thinking that we were here to take their short shelf life product to upsell or make money from it, and using the food bank as a face. And therefore, we took the first couple of years really to build the independence at the food bank level. And we really just started with a simple philosophy that excess foods should not be thrown away. It should just be redistributed to other people who can find a purpose for it. It doesn't matter if you're an NGO, if you're a soup kitchen, or if you're just someone that can help to repurpose this product into other products, or to give it a new lease of life, even by reshipping to third world or developing countries. So that was really where we started out. And because we were so clear in defining a for-profit business and non-profit business, it helped us to define our voices very clearly as well. So people kind of know till today that we are not a family foundation. That was not what we started, because most wealthy families would start a family foundation and then seed maybe other charities, or the family foundation would then say, hey, I will give out 50 scholarships every year. We want to help 100 kids, for example. But that wasn't the path that we took, because we were not wealthy as a family to begin with. So we didn't have the ability to start a foundation. But what we have that didn't stop us from making good is okay, I don't have money, but I have the network and I have the knowledge and the know-how. Maybe as a business person, I can influence others to do good alongside with me. So that was how we started the food bank. And the for-profit business was already run by a operational team that was really good. So Nicholas and I could actually formulate a separate operational team, and we kept the teams very, very separate. Everything was done at arm's length. There was no commingling of funds or anything. The only thing was that Nicholas and I, my brother, that's Nicholas, spent a lot of pro bono time. And in the early days, our company also seeded like free warehousing space, free trucking rides, the logistics we provided free. And Nicholas and I did the invoicing, the delivery orders for the food bank, and that was really it. And that was how we built the food bank from nothing, literally. And now I would say that it's an institute. And we also actually went on to corporatize. Actually, this year it's interesting to know that while we forever will be the co-founders, we have already stepped off the board, because in terms of governance, especially in Singapore, whether is it a listed board or a charity organization, board members cannot stay on for more than 3 to 4 terms of 3 years. So we found a very good executive director who could run the day-to-day. And we also took the last 12 months to clean up our board of directors. We brought in a lot of fresh blood. And I say kudos to ourselves. We actually stepped off the board, and now we allow it to run very independently. They do not come to me for anything at all. And it was because of the strong foundations that we seeded over the last 12, 13 years. Yeah.
I think that's quite an interesting point about how at the get-go, the non-profit and the profit was really separated and into 2 different pathways. And I think many people also think that doing good and making money are likewise 2 separate pathways. From your experience, how do you think business and giving can actually reinforce each other rather than being 2 completely separate ideas?
So interestingly, Ihan, I think I've met a lot of young people, even from your age to the early 20s. And I'm very heartened to know that there's a huge part of the young population that they really want to start purposeful businesses, right? But to be very honest, a business only thrives when it makes money. So the fundamental strength of any business idea needs to be there in the first place, which means that it needs to bring a profit. It needs to at least be able to feed the team that is seeding it. So you cannot lose sight on that particular, being a successful or a concrete business literally means that you need to be able to balance your books. Okay, and without that balancing of the books, all the grander purposes does not come to fruition at all. You can only do that much good based on a very weak business model. So business model needs to be strong. It needs to be profitable. You need to know where your next bucket of gold or your next dollar is coming from. If not, all the big lofty stories, it's going to be very difficult. But on that note, I must say, there's also another huge bucket of people where they feel that, I can only give back or do good when I make money. That's also not 100% true. I feel that being impactful or giving back actually delves down to the very small steps. It can be as good as thinking about the people that works for you, right? And I'm not saying that you need to just hire like special needs people or anything like that. It's not even like that. But are you treating your employees well? That itself is an impact, because let's say even if you have a small team of only 5 to 10 people that works for you, if you are ill-treating your staff, but then your purpose is about, I want to feed XX people, or I want to serve greater community, or serving the uniquely disabled or something, but you yourself are abusing your own team, that itself is already a bad purpose. So I think purpose needs to tie with values about being good as a person, being good as a company, and values being entrenched in honesty, and going back to the nature of what a business is in the first place, right? If you go back thousands of years ago, whether Egypt or China or in Saudi or whatever, the fundamental of starting a business is because you're serving a purpose in society. So that's why you have people who are barbers, you have people who are butchers, you have people who are seamstress, for example. All of us have a unique talent that is supposed to serve a greater purpose in society. And in Chinese, 社会 means everybody is contributing to 公司 in Chinese. For those of you who are non-Chinese listening to this, 公司 means that it's a shared service. If you really go back, so everybody in this society provides a shared service. And back in the day, likely you could get a bowl of rice from your neighborhood friendly hawker if you provided a free haircut to the uncle, for example. So what I'm saying is, how the fundamental of the business society that we see it as today was really barter trade services, barter trade commodities. So let's say if you have corn, I exchange with your carrots, for example. So that fundamentally was the basis of how society was founded on. But now that with monetary terms, so what is the purpose and the impact that you are creating to your neighbor, to your friend, to the other business that is your friend or whatever, right? So maybe you provide an accounting service, another one of your friends provides air conditioning service, for example. But for a true good society to thrive, all of us needs to realize, whether is it a for-profit or non-profit entity, you are here to serve a greater good for other people. At the end of the day, we're just providing services for human beings. That's about it. Whether if you break it down, whether you're a charity or whether you're a business, you are just providing a other service to fellow humankind, if you just treat it as very easily. So if you tag monetary terms to it, you're basically providing a service to better other people. That's it.
That's a very insightful point. And I think it brings up the point that money is simply a subset of the value that you output to society. And I think that purpose is the purpose that you do, and whatever social impact that you output needs to be grounded in your morals and values, especially in a business.
Ihan, if I may just chime in here, I just thought of something, that's the reason why whether it's the US dollar or the international forex exchange it's kind of losing its value, right? And that's why whether is it different types of crypto or tokenization is coming back into favor, because there's this huge inequality on a global standing. Is US dollar going to be it? But with the way of the world, is it going to be some other dollar, or is it a special token? Right? Is it a human token that we're talking about? And I think it's very interesting because everybody of your age group probably already understands tokenization in its essence versus someone in their 60s or 70s, which is very difficult to understand. And that's because everybody's feeling that there's unfair treatment, right? Because of the forex exchange or whatever else. So tokenization actually equalizes global currencies. And this is something for our generation, even Auntie's generation, right? Nicole's generation needs to understand that to provide equality, tokenization will then therefore needs to come in, because all we are providing, doesn't matter you're in Africa or in Singapore or whatever, we're just providing an equal level of service. Yeah.
I think building on that as well, I would like to phrase it, and I would like to think of it in a different manner. So how do you think that with all this technology, there's all these tokenization, with all these technologies up and coming, how would you define enough of success in the business world, or in the amount of value that you output to society? Because a lot of times in this generation, we're always thinking about the next step and the next big thing. But I think we also have to be grateful for what we have, and also to define some certain goals such that we know when we have hit that sort of these sort of limits or things or targets that you want to achieve.
Yeah, I really don't envy the circumstances that the young people live in right now, because I think in the 80s and 90s, even early 2000s, when industrialization was all the rage, and everything was it was easy. It was really easy to get success or to path your way forward, right? I mean, get a good degree, have a good head on your shoulders, work really hard. You're probably able to climb up the ranks, and earn your own keep, right? But in today's world, it's so complicated because there's so many problems, and the problems are no longer localized. It has become so globalized. So I guess if there were a couple of takeaways before we conclude the interview, it would be like to really remember that you don't have to solve the big problems of the world, because we can't. But if you can help the people around you, the people closest to you, the neighborhoods that are closest to you, you can always start small. And if you have something that you're deeply passionate about, do not wait for tomorrow, because the world doesn't wait for anybody. It already in the past doesn't wait for anybody. Like changes happen so fast. But in today's world, the changes are happening at AI speed, right? And your big dreams can be easily replaced by some kind of a bot. But I just wanted to say that it's very important, or one of the most unhappiest thing that I feel right now is that success always goes to the top elites of the world. Right, and even in Singapore's landscape, right, the best of the best people who get to the best of the best schools, they always seem to be able to get more success, and then we leave a lot of people behind. So as a society in Singapore, I'm just making an appeal that can we also think of, as we create our own success, how can we uplift others that are not as capable as us, not as good as us, and to rally the people around us to make sure that no one is left behind. Because Singapore as a nation, we're already way ahead of everybody else. So can we uplift those that, in Singapore, and then collectively as a nation help to uplift those, in our neighboring countries. And I think there's so much more that we can do when you zoom out of Singapore and not just compete, within Singapore, because there's so much more support, so much success that we can get from expanding to a global stage instead of just, looking at Singapore as a stage. And there might be solutions that some of you are already thinking about, that small business idea, that little nugget of a dream that you have. Don't just look at Singapore as a market, but look at the grander stage, and the very interesting thing is, with the metaverse, with tokenization, with how AI has evolved, the world really is our oyster. We are no longer just connected to geographical demographic, right? We are just with e-commerce, right? If you have a great product here, you can just sell to anyone across the world. So I guess the important thing really is think big, think strong, but think purposefully as well, because money will genuinely come and go. And as long as you're guarded by your heart to create stuff in the good place, do not cheat, and anchored by grand purpose with good purpose, and you're mooting your ideas with the right heart in place, right? I'm very sure you will go far. Yeah, that's what I'll say.
That's a great note to end this section on. To wrap up, I would like to ask the last question. If your 17-year-old self were listening to this conversation, what's one piece of advice you would want them to carry forward, especially about money, opportunities, and purpose?
My 17-year-old self would be, I literally want to tell her that please do not give up on your dream of creating your own fashion cafe, which I did design and draw, but I wasn't gung-ho enough to pursue that. I still have the drawings in my file. So this is one. But the second thing which I felt is going to be really important is that learn how to make a living for yourself. Because in today's world, don't rely on other people for a job. But as long as if you learn how to take care of yourself and earn money for yourself, anybody, doesn't matter your background, your education, as long as you know how to feed yourselves, you would be off to a better place. And this is the exact advice that I'm giving my 13-year-old to create a business at 13. Yeah, and therefore you start younger, you fail earlier, and as you grow up, you will be able to take all these failures and charter your own path ahead. So for all of you listening in, it's never too early to start on a dream, to start on a business, to start on anything. Please take that dream with you and march on as strong as you can.
Thank you, Nichol, for sharing such honest insights about purpose and redefining success. For our listeners, remember that your career and your conscience don't have to be separate. Whether you're starting a side hustle, choosing a major, or volunteering on weekends, every small action can build towards impact. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to follow, share, and stay tuned for more insights from voices who have lived it. And remember, financial wisdom isn't learned, it is lived. See you next time.